She told me I was her only one. I spent over $80,000 trying to build a life with her. Now I sit alone in a budget apartment wondering how I let it happen. This isn't just about money. It's about losing myself. The first time I saw Mntaya, I was standing in the marble lobby of the Andaman Pearl Resort, sweating through my polo shirt like some tourist fool. 64 degrees back home in Calgary, snow piling up on my empty driveway, and here I was in paradise feeling more lost than I had in my 30 years of marriage. "Welcome to Thailand, sir. First time in Phuket?" Her voice was like honey over warm bread. Soft, real. Not the practiced hotel smile I'd been getting all week. I looked up from my phone where I was trying to figure out how to book a massage, and there she was, Mntaya. Though I didn't know her name yet, I wasn't planning to sit down and share this tonight. But earlier this week, I opened an email from a longtime viewer of this channel. He told me he'd been watching quietly for months, never missing a video, but never saying a word until now. His story wasn't polished, but it was raw, brutal in its honesty, and as I read his words, I felt something shift in me. At first, I felt shock, that gut punch moment when someone else's story mirrors your own so closely you wonder if they lived inside your skin. Then came sorrow, deep and heavy, because I could feel his loneliness bleeding through every line. And finally there was gratitude. Gratitude that he trusted me with his pain. Gratitude that these late-night confessions don't just vanish into the dark, but connect us across oceans and regrets. That's why I pressed record tonight. And before I go any further, I want to thank you. Yes, you watching right now. Please leave a comment below and tell me where you're tuning in from. I read them all, and it means more than you'll ever know. And to those who keep coming back, story after story, this is my super thank you. You're the reason I can sit here, night after night, opening old wounds and telling the truth. Please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and join the conversation below, because tonight, I need to tell you everything. Let me take you back to where it all started. Just this beautiful woman with eyes that actually seemed to see me instead of looking right through me like every other person had for the past 2 years since Linda walked out. "Yeah, first time," I said, probably grinning like an idiot. "And from the looks of my arms, I'm not doing it right." She laughed. Actually laughed. Not a polite giggle, but a real laugh that made her whole face light up. "You need sunscreen, yes? Thai sun is very strong, different from Canada sun." How did she know I was Canadian? Must have been obvious. The pale skin, the confused expression, the way I was holding my phone like it might explode. "Let me show you something," she said, pulling out a small bottle of cream from behind the spa desk. "This one is good for after. Your skin will feel better." When her fingers brushed mine as she handed me the bottle, something shifted. I felt alive for the first time in months. Not just alive. Hopeful. "My name is Mntaya. I work here at the spa reception." "Alan," I said, probably holding onto her hand a beat too long. "Alan from Canada, apparently." She smiled again. "Yes, I can tell. Canadian men are very kind, very gentle." We talked for maybe 10 minutes. About the resort, about the weather, about how different everything was here. When she mentioned that her shift ended at 6 and asked if I wanted to try some real Thai food, not tourist food, I said yes before she even finished the question. "There's a place by the beach," she said. "Local people go there. You will like it, I think." I walked back to my room that afternoon, feeling something I hadn't felt since before Linda started sleeping in the guest room. Young. Wanted. Like maybe this trip to Thailand wasn't just about running away from an empty house and 28 years of memories. Maybe it was about finding something new. That evening, waiting for Mntaya by the resort's front gate, I caught myself checking my reflection in the glass doors. When was the last time I'd done that? When was the last time it mattered how I looked to someone? She appeared at exactly 6, changed out of her uniform into a simple sundress that made her look even more beautiful. "Ready for adventure, Alan from Canada?" "Ready as I'll ever be," I said, and meant it. We walked to a small restaurant that I never would have found on my own. Plastic chairs, no English menu, the smell of garlic and chilies hanging in the warm air. She ordered for both of us, laughing when I tried to pronounce the names of dishes. "Your Thai is very cute," she said. "Maybe I can teach you." The food was incredible. Spicy enough to make my eyes water, but she kept encouraging me to try more. Thai food is like life, she said. A little pain makes the good parts sweeter. We talked until almost midnight, about her work at the resort, about my construction business back home, about how different our worlds were. She asked about my life in Canada with genuine curiosity. Not the practiced questions of someone being polite, but real interest. You must be lonely sometimes, she said quietly, and the way she said it made me realize she understood. That maybe she was lonely too. Sometimes, I admitted, more than sometimes lately. She reached across the table and touched my hand. Just for a moment. Not tonight, she said. Walking back to the resort, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not just attraction, though that was there, but possibility. Like maybe this wasn't just a vacation, maybe this was a chance to be someone different, someone better. Thank you, I said when we reached the gates, for tonight, for showing me this place. Thank you for coming with me, she replied. Most hotel guests, they don't want to see real Thailand. Only tourist Thailand. As I watched her walk away into the warm night, I already knew I wanted to see her again, more than wanted, needed. For the first time since Linda left, taking half of everything and leaving me with a house full of nothing, I felt like maybe I wasn't done living yet. 3 days later, I was spending more time in the spa lobby than by the pool. Alan, Mntaya would call out whenever I appeared, and that smile never got old, never felt fake. She started taking her breaks when I was around, sitting with me in the resort's garden area, sharing stories about growing up in a small village in Isan. My family is very poor, she told me one afternoon. But we are happy. Simple life, you know? I found myself telling her things I'd never told Linda. About how empty the house felt after the divorce. About how I'd built dozens of homes for other families but never really felt at home in my own. About how retirement was supposed to be the reward for 30 years of getting up at 5 a.m., but mostly it just felt like waiting to die. You're not old, she said, and the way she said it made me believe her. You have good heart. I can see. That night, she agreed to have dinner at my Airbnb. I'd rented a little place about 10 minutes from the resort, nothing fancy, but it had a kitchen and a view of the water. I cooked pasta. The only thing I knew how to make that wasn't sandwiches, and she brought fresh mangoes from the local market. In Thailand, we believe food is love, she said, cutting the fruit with the care of someone who'd grown up understanding that nothing should be wasted. We ate on the small balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky impossible colors. She told me about her job at the resort, how some days were good and some days were hard, especially when guests treated her like she was invisible. You see me, she said quietly. That's why I like you. After dinner, she stayed. Not in the way I might have hoped, but in the way I needed. We watched a movie on my laptop, her head on my shoulder, and I felt more content than I had in years. My phone is broken, she mentioned as we were saying goodnight. The screen is cracked. I need to save money to fix it. The next morning, I went to the phone shop in Patong Beach. 2,000 baht for a screen repair seemed like nothing compared to the smile on her face when I handed her the fixed phone. Alan, you don't need to do this. I want to, I said. And I did. Helping her felt good, felt like I had a purpose again. The day after that, it was her scooter. The chain had broken, and she couldn't afford to fix it. That was another 1,500 baht. I will pay you back, she promised, but I waved her off. Don't worry about it. What's the point of having money if you can't help someone you care about? Because I did care about her, more than I wanted to admit. More than was probably smart after knowing someone for a week. But when she hugged me, after I paid for the scooter repair, holding on just a little longer than necessary, I felt like maybe this was what I'd come to Thailand to find. Not just a vacation, not just an escape, but someone who saw value in the man I'd forgotten I could be. My landlord wants to raise my rent, she told me the following week. We were having coffee at a small cafe near her apartment building. 5,000 baht more per month. I don't know what to do. How much is your rent now? I asked. 8,000 baht. In Canadian dollars, that was maybe 250 bucks. The increase was another 150. I spent more than that on groceries some weeks. Let me help, I said. Alan, no. That's too much. It's not too much, I said, and I meant it. You work hard. You shouldn't have to stress about having a place to live. That night, she cooked for me at her apartment, a tiny place, but clean and bright, with pictures of her family everywhere, her parents, her younger brothers and sisters. They all depend on me, she explained. I send money home every month for their school, for food. I understood. I'd supported my parents until they died. It felt good to take care of people. It felt like being a man. You're good daughter, I told her. Good sister. You're good man, she replied, and when she kissed me that night, soft and sweet and full of something that felt real, I knew I was falling in love. Real love. Not the tired companionship that Linda and I had settled into, not the going through the motions, but the kind of love that made you want to be better, the kind that made you believe in tomorrow. I started thinking about extending my visa, about what it would be like to stay in Thailand longer than the 2 months I'd planned, about what it would be like to build something here. With her. The calls started about 3 weeks in. We'd be having dinner or walking along the beach, and her phone would ring. She'd look at the screen, frown slightly, then step away to answer. Sorry, work calling, she'd say. Or, my brother needs help with something. Always stepping just far enough away that I couldn't hear the conversation. Always coming back with an explanation that made sense, at first. Why don't you ever answer your phone when you're with me? I asked one evening. We were at a small restaurant near my Airbnb, sharing pad thai and talking about maybe taking a trip to Bangkok together. She just let her phone ring for the 3rd time that night. It's not important, she said, but I caught the way her eyes flicked to the screen, saw the name before she turned it face down. Somchai. Who's Somchai? I asked, trying to keep my voice light. My cousin, she said quickly. He calls too much. Always wants money. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But something in the way she said it, the way she wouldn't quite meet my eyes, reminded me of the last year with Linda. The phone calls she'd take in another room. The explanations that never quite added up. Linda used to do that, I said without thinking. Do what? Take calls in private. Made me feel like I wasn't worth including in her life. Mntaya reached across the table and took my hand. Alan, don't be like this. You're not like your ex-wife's story. I'm not like your ex-wife. Some things are private, that's all. She was right. I was being paranoid, jealous. All the things that had driven Linda away. You're right, I said. Sorry. Old habits. But the calls kept coming, and she kept stepping away. And when I suggested we do a video call one evening when she said she was too tired to meet, she made excuses. My internet is bad tonight. I look terrible. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow became next week. Next week became maybe someday. My aunt died. She told me on a Tuesday morning, tears in her eyes. I have to go to Buram for the funeral. I'll be gone for 2 weeks. 2 weeks felt like forever. I offered to come with her, to support her through a difficult time. No, she said quickly. Family only. You understand. I gave her money for the bus ticket, for the hotel, for flowers for the funeral. 3,000 baht that felt like an investment in being the kind of man who was there for the people he loved. She left on a Wednesday. I spent the next 14 days counting hours, checking my phone, waiting for updates. She texted occasionally. Miss you. Funeral was very sad. We'll be home soon. But no photos. No details. No video calls, despite me asking if she needed someone to talk to. When she came back, she seemed different, quieter, more distant. The funeral was hard, she explained when I asked about the change. Death makes you think about life differently. I wanted to comfort her. I held her while she cried, stroked her hair, told her everything would be okay, but something felt off. Something in the way she cried felt performed, like she was showing me grief rather than feeling it. Tell me about your aunt, I said one night. What was she like? I don't want to talk about it, she replied. It's too painful. I respected that. Grief was personal. Grief was complicated. But weeks passed, and she never mentioned her aunt again. Never talked about her family dealing with the loss. Never showed me a single photo from the trip. Did you take any pictures at the funeral? I asked once. Alan, why you ask so many questions? Some things are private, Some things are too sad to remember. She was right again. I was being pushy, suspicious. All the things I'd promised myself I wouldn't be. But late at night, lying alone in my Airbnb while she slept in her apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't adding up. The aunt who died but left no trace. The cousin who called but never seemed to exist. The grief that came and went like weather. I was turning into the man Linda had accused me of being. Paranoid. Controlling. Unable to trust. Maybe the problem wasn't Mntaya. Maybe the problem was me. I want to stay. I told her one evening as we sat on the beach watching the sunset. I want to extend my visa and move here permanently. The words surprised me as much as they seemed to surprise her. Alan, are you sure? Thailand is very different from Canada. I've never been more sure of anything, I said, and in that moment, I meant it. Everything back home felt like a previous life. The empty house, the friends who'd chosen Linda in the divorce, the retirement that felt more like waiting to die than living. Here with Mntaya, I felt alive. What about your house in Canada? I'll sell it. Use the money to start over here. Her smile was radiant. Really? You would do that? For us, yes. The visa extension cost me 40,000 baht through a fixer that Mntaya recommended. A guy named Niran who worked out of a small office in Patong Beach, surrounded by stacks of paperwork and speaking broken English with absolute confidence. No problem, he assured me. Tourist visa become retirement visa. Very easy. You pay now, I handle everything. It seemed expensive, but everything in Thailand seemed to work differently. Cash up front, promises of results later. I trusted Mntaya's judgment. He's good, she assured me. My friend used him last year. No problems. With the visa paperwork submitted, Mntaya started talking about our future more seriously. We should find a nicer place to live, she suggested. Somewhere with ocean view, somewhere more romantic. The condo she showed me was beautiful. 2 bedrooms, modern kitchen, balcony overlooking Keita Beach. The monthly rent was 30,000 baht, more than I'd ever paid for housing in my life, but in Canadian dollars it was still less than my mortgage payment back home. I love it, I said, watching her face light up as she walked through the rooms. We can put our bed here, she said, pointing to the master bedroom. And this room can be for when your friends visit from Canada. Our bed, our future, our life together. I paid the deposit and first 3 months' rent that afternoon. 60,000 baht that felt like the best money I'd ever spent. Thank you, she said, kissing me in the empty living room with the ocean visible through the sliding glass doors. I love you, Alan. Those were the first time she'd said those words. I'd been waiting to hear them for weeks. I love you too, I said, and the weight of it, the certainty of it, felt like coming home. That night, she told me about her family's house back in Isan. The roof is very old, she explained, showing me pictures on her phone. When it rains, water comes inside. My parents sleep on the floor to stay dry. The photos showed a small wooden structure with corrugated metal roofing that had seen better decades. Her parents, elderly and weathered, standing in front of their home with smiles that didn't hide their poverty. How much would it cost to fix? I asked. Maybe 50,000 baht for new roof. But that's impossible. Too much money. 50,000 baht. In Canadian dollars, maybe 1,500. I'd spent more than that on the fishing boat I'd bought and used twice before the divorce. Let's do it, I said. Let's fix their roof. Her reaction was everything I'd hoped for. Tears of joy. Gratitude that felt pure and real. That night, making love in our new condo with the sound of waves outside our window, I felt like I'd found my purpose. This was what my life had been building toward. Not just loving someone, but taking care of them. Being the kind of man who could solve problems, who could make life better for the people he cared about. Maybe we can start a business together, she said as we lay in bed afterward. A small spa. I know the business, and you have the experience building things. I'd like that, I said. I'd like building something with you. Maybe we can have children too, she added softly. You would be good father. Children. At 57, I'd never thought that was in my future. Linda and I had tried for years, spent thousands on treatments that never worked. But with Mntaya, everything seemed possible. I'd like that too, I said. We started looking at commercial spaces the next week. Small storefronts in Kata and Karon, where we could open a day spa, nothing fancy, but clean and professional. A place where she could use her experience, and I could use my construction skills to build something beautiful. This one is perfect, she said, pointing to a space near the main road. Good location, good price. We could have 3 massage rooms, maybe 4. The deposit was another 50,000 baht. The renovation would cost at least twice that. But when I saw the way she looked at the empty space, seeing what it could become, I knew it was worth it. We were building something together, a business, a life, a future that neither of us could have imagined alone. She vanished on a Tuesday. Just gone. No explanation, no warning, no answer to my calls or texts. Monday night, we'd had dinner at our favorite restaurant, talking about paint colors for the spa and maybe taking a weekend trip to Phi Phi Island. Tuesday morning, I woke up in our condo alone. Mntaya, I called out, checking the bathroom, the kitchen, the balcony. Her clothes were still in the closet, her shampoo still in the shower. But she was gone. I walked to the resort where she worked, expecting to find her behind the spa reception desk with that smile that always made everything feel right. Mntaya not working today, the manager told me. She called in sick. Is she okay? I'm her boyfriend, Alan. The manager looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. I don't know. She just called, said she cannot come to work. I spent that day calling her phone every hour, straight to voicemail. The recording of her voice saying, "Hi, this is Mntaya, please leave message," became a torture I couldn't stop inflicting on myself. Wednesday was the same. And Thursday. I drove to her apartment building, but the security guard wouldn't let me up. "Miss Mntaya not here," he said in broken English. "She go somewhere. Not come back yet." "Where did she go?" I asked, but he just shrugged. By Friday I was losing my mind. Sitting in our condo, staring at her clothes in the closet, trying to make sense of what had happened. Had there been an accident? A family emergency? Was she lying hurt somewhere, unable to call for help? Or was this something else? Something I didn't want to think about. "Maybe try the hospital," suggested Gary, the older British guy I'd started talking to at a bar in Kata Beach. He'd been living in Phuket for 10 years, and something in his eyes suggested he'd seen this story before. Sometimes there are accidents. Sometimes family problems. I spent Saturday visiting every hospital in Phuket. No Mntaya. No records of anyone matching her description being admitted. Sunday came and went in a haze of unanswered phone calls and growing dread. Then, Monday afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text message. "Sorry, Alan. Had family emergency. We'll call you soon." That was it. No explanation. No details. No acknowledgement that I'd been worried sick for almost a week. When she finally showed up at the condo on Tuesday evening, she looked different. Tired, distant, like she was wearing a mask of the woman I'd fallen in love with. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. "I was scared something happened to you." "Family problem," she said, not meeting my eyes. "My father very sick. I had to go home quickly." "Why didn't you call?" "I've been going crazy. No phone signal in my village. You know how it is in Isan." But she was holding her phone. The same phone I'd paid to fix. The same phone that worked perfectly fine when she wanted to take those private calls. "I thought maybe something happened to you." I said, "I checked hospitals. I was ready to call the police." "Alan, don't be dramatic. I'm fine. Everything is fine now." But everything wasn't fine. She wouldn't touch me. Barely looked at me. When I tried to hold her, she pulled away. "I'm very tired," she said. "Maybe I should go back to my apartment tonight." "This is our place now," I reminded her. "You don't have to go anywhere." "I know, but I need space to think." Space to think. The same words Linda had used right before she moved out of our bedroom. Right before she started staying out late. Right before I found out about Mark from her office. Think about what? About my father, about family, about life. She stayed that night, but it felt like sleeping next to a stranger. Someone who looked like Mntaya but felt like a hologram. The next morning, she was gone again. Not disappeared like before, but distant, polite, like I was a customer at the resort instead of the man she'd said she loved. The woman who'd talked about babies and businesses and building a life together had been replaced by someone who flinched when I touched her hand. "Are we okay?" I asked her one evening as we sat in the condo, the silence between us feeling heavier than the humid air. "Of course," she said, but her smile was the practiced hotel smile from the day we met. Why would we not be okay? I wanted to believe her. God, how I wanted to believe her. But I'd been here before. I knew what it looked like when someone was preparing to leave. I saw them at Café Del Mar. She was laughing. Really laughing. The way she used to laugh with me. Her hand was on his arm, and he was young, Thai, handsome in the way that made me feel every one of my 57 years. I'd gone there for coffee, trying to make sense of why she'd been pulling away, why every conversation felt like walking on broken glass. And there she was, 15 tables away, looking happier than I'd seen her in weeks. They were holding hands, not the casual touch of friends, but the intimate way of people who knew each other's bodies, who'd shared secrets and mornings and all the small intimacies I thought belonged to us. I sat frozen, watching this woman I'd given everything to lean across the table and kiss another man. Not a peck on the cheek, not a friendly gesture, a real kiss, full of heat and familiarity and everything that used to be mine. When she looked up and saw me, I expected shock, guilt, some acknowledgement that this moment was destroying everything we'd built. Instead, she just looked at me for a moment, then turned back to him. Like I was a stranger. Like I'd never mattered at all. I don't remember walking out. Don't remember driving back to the condo. I just remember sitting on our balcony, staring at the ocean, trying to understand how I'd gotten here, how I'd become this man again. The phone rang around 8, her number on the screen. I almost didn't answer. "Alan?" Her voice was calm, normal, like nothing had happened. "We need to talk," I said. "Okay." I come to the condo. She arrived an hour later, looking exactly like she had that first day at the resort. Beautiful, composed, completely in control. "I saw you today," I said, "at the cafe." "Yes, I know." No explanation, no apology, no dramatic scene, just acknowledgement. "Who is he?" I asked. "Mntaya. My friend. Your friend." I felt something crack open inside my chest. The cousin who calls too much? He's not my cousin. And the aunt who died? The one you went to Buriam to bury? There was no aunt. Each word hit like a physical blow. But somehow, hearing the truth was almost a relief. All those weeks of feeling crazy, of second-guessing myself, of wondering if I was being paranoid like Linda had always said. I wasn't crazy. I was just stupid. "So what was this?" I asked, gesturing at the condo around us. "What was any of this?" "Alan, I never lied to you about what this was. You said you loved me. I cared about you. You're a good man. Kind. But not enough to be honest with me." She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer but somehow more brutal than anger would have been. "You wanted someone to take care of. I needed someone to help me. We helped each other. I wanted someone to love. I thought you wanted the same thing. Love is expensive, Alan. I can't afford it." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. "So what am I to you? What was I ever to you? You were very generous. You helped me a lot. But you're not my boyfriend. You're a friend who helped me. A friend who helped her. $80,000 worth of helping. 6 months of believing in something that was never real. And Mntaya? Mntaya is my boyfriend. We've been together for 2 years. 2 years. While she was letting me fix her phone. While she was letting me pay her rent. While she was letting me believe in a future that never existed. "I should go," I said. "Alan, you don't need to be angry. This doesn't have to change anything. We can still be friends." "No," I said quietly. "We can't." I spent the rest of the night packing, not just my clothes, but the pieces of my heart I'd scattered around this place. The business cards for the spa we were never going to open. The photos of her family whose roof I'd helped repair while their daughter was playing house with 2 different men. By morning I was gone. I never spoke to her again. The numbers were worse than I'd imagined. Sitting in a cheap apartment in Patong Beach, the kind of place backpackers stayed when they'd run out of money, I added it up for the 100th time. Visa fees, 40,000 baht. Condo deposit and rent, 120,000 baht. Her family's roof, 50,000 baht. Phones, scooters, rent money, business deposits, dinners, gifts, trips that never happened, another 60,000 baht. In Canadian dollars, I'd spent just over 80,000. More than I'd made in my last year before retirement. Money I'd planned to live on for the next decade. Gone. Vanished into the smile of a woman who'd never seen me as anything more than a walking ATM. You want to file a report? The police officer asked when I finally worked up the courage to visit the station in Patong. He was young, bored, clearly annoyed that some farang was taking up his time with relationship drama. She took my money under false pretenses. I said, she lied about everything. Did she steal from you? Not exactly, but did she threaten you for money? No, but she lied about loving me to get me to. Sir, this is personal matter, not police matter. Girlfriend problems, not crime problems. He was right, of course. I'd given her the money willingly, eagerly. I'd been so desperate to feel needed, to feel loved, that I'd thrown money at her like confetti. She'd never put a gun to my head, never threatened me. She'd just let me believe what I wanted to believe. You're not the first, Gary told me when I ran into him at a bar in Kata Beach. He was drinking a Singha beer and looked like he'd heard this story 1,000 times. And you won't be the last. This island is full of men like you. Like us. Men like us? Men who came here looking for something we lost back home. Men who thought we could buy love with kindness and Western salaries. I wanted to argue with him, to say my situation was different, that what Mntaya and I had was real, even if it ended badly. But sitting in that bar, surrounded by other middle-aged Western men with younger Thai women who laughed a little too hard at their jokes, I realized I'd been living in a fantasy. How long have you been here? I asked Gary. 10 years. Went through 3 girlfriends and about 60,000 pounds before I figured it out. Figured what out? That they're not the problem. We are. We come here broken and expect them to fix us. When they can't, when they won't, we blame them for not being what we needed them to be. That night, alone, in my tiny apartment, I forced myself to look at the pictures on my phone. Mntaya and me at dinner, on the beach, in the condo that had felt like home for all of 3 weeks. In every photo, she was smiling. That same hotel smile I'd seen on the first day. I'd just been too desperate to notice it was never real. I deleted them all, every single one. Then I sat on my narrow bed and cried for the first time since my parents died. Not just for the money, though that hurt. Not just for Mntaya, though losing her felt like losing a limb. But for the man I'd become. The man who was so desperate to be needed that he'd confused transaction for affection. Who was so afraid of being alone that he'd paid $80,000 for the illusion of love. I cried for the house in Calgary that I'd sold to chase a dream that was never mine. For the retirement I'd planned that was now impossible. For the future I'd imagined that had never existed anywhere except in my head. Most of all, I cried for the realization that I'd done this to myself. Every choice, every payment, every moment of willful blindness. I'd been so afraid of turning into the jealous, suspicious man Linda had accused me of being that I'd become something worse, a fool. 6 months later, I'm sitting in a different apartment now, still in Phuket but smaller, cheaper. No ocean view, but there's a small balcony where I can watch the street life below. Vendors selling fruit, tourists haggling for tuk-tuk rides, the daily rhythm of a place that's both foreign and familiar now. I kept expecting to see her. In the markets, at the restaurants we used to go to, walking hand in hand with Somchai the way she used to walk with me. But Phuket is bigger than it seems when you're in love, and smaller than it seems when you're trying to disappear. Maybe she moved. Maybe she found another generous Canadian. Maybe she's still working at that resort, smiling at the next lonely man who needs to believe in something beautiful. I don't know. I realized I don't need to know. The money is gone. Most of it anyway. I had to take a job teaching English to pay the rent on this place. 37 years old when I started swinging a hammer, 57 when I picked up a whiteboard marker. Life has a sense of humor. My students are mostly adults who work in tourism. Hotel staff, tour guides, people who need English to deal with foreigners like I used to be. They're kind to me, patient when I stumble through lessons about verb tenses and pronunciation. Sometimes I catch them looking at me with something like pity, this old farang who obviously fell on hard times. If they only knew how right they are. I've started reading again, something I hadn't done since high school, but time has a weight here that demands filling. Books about Thailand, about Buddhism, about men who got lost and found different versions of themselves. I cook now too. Simple meals, nothing fancy, but there's something satisfying about feeding yourself when you've spent months paying other people to take care of you. Gary comes by sometimes. We don't talk about our stories anymore, we've both heard them enough. Instead, we play cards and drink beer and watch the sunset from my balcony. He's dating someone new. A woman his own age, a British expat who runs a bookshop in Old Town. It's different, he told me last week. Quieter, but real. I'm happy for him. Not jealous, which surprises me. Just happy that someone figured out how to do it right. The hardest part isn't the money, though teaching English doesn't pay much, and my Canadian pension feels tiny in a currency that moves against me. The hardest part isn't even the loneliness, though some evenings the silence in this apartment feels loud enough to wake the dead. The hardest part is accepting that I might never get closure, that I might never understand why she chose to hurt me when she could have just told me the truth, that I might never know if there were moments, even brief ones, when her feelings were real, but maybe closure is overrated.